Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Stephen Mbakengo. I am a Platform Solutions Manager here at SmartSimple. I am joined by Mark as well, my colleague, and today we're going to be presenting the July 2023 upgrade. So before we start, just a few reminders. This is being recorded, so you have the option to watch it again in the future if you need so. You will also be providing the video link in all of our socials. So we're going to ask if you have any questions to hold them to the end. We'll have a question and answer period as well. Put them in at any time, and we'll go ahead and do that. So without any further ado, Mark, when you're ready, just let us know.
Great. All right. Yeah, so as Stephen said, basically we're going to walk through the July 2023 upgrade. I'm going to start by playing a 10-minute video because I've recorded my presentation just to keep things concise. And as we're going, just feel free to start putting questions into the chat, and then that way we'll have lots of time to answer whatever questions that you have. And we can dig a little deeper. So again, I'm just going to give a 10-minute overview, which is pre-recorded, and then we'll dive right into the question and answer. And I believe Stephen also mentioned you will get emailed a copy of this recording as well. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to mute myself and stop my video.
More information can be found on wiki.smartsimple.com and click on the Upgrades link. The upgrade dates are listed here. This is what we call the key release. Upgrades happen every 4th month. The package is applied to your backup environment 2 weeks prior to the release, and managed dedicated clients receive the upgrade 2 weeks after the key release. Service packs that happen between upgrades will also be listed on the wiki page. Let's dive in. Global system upgrades. These are changes that will occur automatically and affect all users. The first 2 items won't happen until the next upgrade, which is in the November release. We are deprecating several password variables for security purposes. After the November upgrade, these variables will no longer work. You will need to transition to using the activation link variable. Typically, you will need to update the activation and password reset emails, but you may also need to update sign-up pages and workflow emails. For example, if you go to Menu Icon, Global Settings, Security tab, Password and Activation Policies, Activation Emails tab, I can click on the sample template link to populate this field with a suggested template that contains the desired variable. Here is the activation link variable, and here it is again. And as previously mentioned, you may need to update sign-up pages and workflow emails. Contact our support team if you'd like assistance. These variables will need to be updated prior to the next upgrade, which is the November upgrade. Also in the November upgrade, the look of the file upload fields will change slightly. You can now drag and drop files in line instead of opening a modal window. You can enable the new uploader at any time by going to the Menu Icon, Global Settings, Branding tab. Note, this new uploader will also be enforced in the November upgrade. The media library is a great way to view, stream, and share media. I can play videos in line, watch it full screen, and if I go to another tab or scroll the media off screen, the video will appear in a docking well. In this upgrade, we have made the docking well resizable. If you don't have access to the media library, reach out to your account manager. On-demand system upgrades. These new features and changes are optional. SmartSimple Cloud already integrates with large language models, which clients are using to improve productivity, processes, and outcomes. Typically, people are using the AI syntax, like this, in web page views and workflows. Some use cases include pre-screening applications, generating executive summaries, and matching reviewers with applications based on expertise. In this upgrade, we added a new interactive mode, where users can pick from pre-made templates of common tasks you might want to run ad hoc. Then the user can follow up with related questions using natural language in a chat-like window. For example, I open up the new Work with the AI interface and select a predefined template asking the AI to summarize the application. Once I receive the response, I can ask a follow-up question like, will this help children in need? and follow up with another question. You can see how this is configured by going to the Configuration Settings, Level 1 tab, AI. Access to this new interactive AI mode is controlled here. The individual templates within the interactive AI mode are also controlled by role, so you can decide who gets access to the AI, what they'll be able to do, and when. If you're interested in setting up the AI integration in your system, reach out to your account manager. Now, let's say I'm going to be out of the office. Maybe I'm going on annual leave, or I need someone to temporarily take over my tasks while I'm away. Changing another user's roles, assigning them tasks for a short period of time would be laborious. We have added a feature to help with business continuity during these transitional periods. If you enable the new delegation feature, you can go to the User menu, Personal Settings, Other tab, and toggle on Enable Delegation. I pick my dates, I add an optional message, and I save. The person I've selected will receive an email, and if a user navigates to my profile, they will see the optional message telling them who to contact in my absence. Now, when my delegate logs in to the system, you can see that their access is limited. But they do see a new delegation icon in the header. At any time during the time frame I have specified, my delegate can emulate me. They can see what I can see and can take action on my behalf. This feature is not limited to internal staff either. If a stakeholder on an application is not able to fill in their portion of the application, they could delegate to a co-applicant who could fill that portion of the application in on their behalf. Depending on your organization's unique business process, you may find you have a lot of buttons in the Submit bar at the bottom of an application. We have added the ability to group buttons under a button group. It's an easy way to save space and organize your buttons if they're getting unwieldy. Simply go to Configuration Settings, the desired level, Submit Buttons, and edit a Submit button. Give that Submit button a group name. All buttons with the same button group name will appear under the button group like this. We added the ability to upload files to specific records via the autoloader in bulk. If you had several files across multiple records that needed to be updated within specific UTA, users, or companies, finding each record and manually uploading those files would be tedious. Now, if you upload a CSV file containing the mandatory columns and a zip file containing the files you want uploaded, the autoloader will unpack the files and place them in the specific custom fields on the desired records. Note that the CSV and zip files need to have the same name, and the records must already exist. The default from address helps ensure emails sent from the system have a consistent from address. If I go to Global Settings, Communications, Email Options, there's a new setting. If I toggle this new setting off, it will lock the from address and make the from address appear as read-only when users generate an email in the system. If you wanted a shortcut with a count, which is an aggregate style, but wanted a custom search on the result page, you can now direct aggregate shortcuts to a portal section, as long as Link to List View is toggled off. Instead of setting up visibility conditions on portal shortcuts in the common role, you can now easily control shortcut access by role. If you're editing a shortcut, we've made it easier to jump to editing the portal from the shortcut configuration screen, as well as from the shortcut list view screen. If you ever wanted to add a note to many applications, users, or organizations at the same time, now you can. For example, I could add the same note to several applications, notifying everyone that the application should not proceed until the related organization has passed their OFAC check. You might choose to use the High Visibility Notes feature to ensure the message is prominently seen. The High Visibility option is a note type setting located under Global Settings, System tab. If you've never used the smart cards, they are located under the User menu. Smart cards are a great feature, similar to a favorites list. I can pick several records that may have nothing in common other than I want something actioned on each record, and then I can share the list of records with my team. In a meeting, I can dock my list of records for quick and easy access. In this upgrade, we added a way to open record notes directly from smart cards without opening the record first, saving you a click. Notes for system administrators. If you're working with the Smart Connect API, we added an easy way to see the logs in general, by function and by user. We also added functionality around deleting files and restricting which roles can access API functions. We have added the ability to send signed authentication requests to identity providers for service provider initiated single sign-on. We've added the ability to increase the maximum file upload size for a server beyond 2 gigabytes. You must be on a dedicated server to be able to access that setting, which is found on the Gort automation page. Once you've updated the setting on Gort, you'll have more options in the custom field settings page. In regards to workflows, we added new options for the Create New Activity tasks. Workflows that are not set to run asynchronously will now run in a more linear manner in this order. Record lock will be enabled for new systems. This prevents two users from editing the same record at the same time. Note, you can anonymize record lock messages at Configuration Settings, Security tab, as well as at Global Settings on the Security tab. The System Security Summary has been updated to flag if you've allowed all users to log into your backup environment. It's advised that some role restrictions should be in place around who can log into your backup environments. The setting to control logging into backup environments is located at Global Settings, Security, System Feature Permissions, and it's on the Feature tab. Several classic options have also been deprecated in this upgrade. If you have questions, contact us at support@smartsimple.com or call us at 1-866-239-0991.
All right. So that was the quick overview, and now I'm happy to dig into anything. I know there was a lot in there, so as I said, I'm happy to dig into anything and show you a little more depth about any of those features.
So I'll thanks, Mark. I'll review any of the questions that come up. So the first question is, when will this video be added to the wiki page?
Well, first of all, you'll receive this video, I believe, shortly after this webinar. So even if you don't attend these webinars, if maybe the time didn't work for you, you will get emailed this, and you can view it right then. That will be added to the webinar once there'll be a smaller version of this created, probably a 5-minute one, and it will come out relatively soon. I don't have an exact date, unfortunately, yet, but there will be a shorter video that you can share with other people, and it will also be on the YouTube channel as well.
Right. Another question, can we go over the updated workflow behavior in more detail?
Sure. All right, let me go down to workflows. Yeah. So with this one, so first off, there's the new options here. So by default, the workflow has always triggered these formulas, and they always actually triggered this, and they wouldn't have triggered this. So there's a new setting there on those tasks where if you wanted to, you can change that behavior. You can start doing the status triggers and the trigger formulas. In regards to this workflow behavior, you really won't probably notice anything other than a workflow may take a little longer to run. The whole idea is that when they're running, we want them to run in a specific order to make sure that you don't have two workflows working on the same object at the same time. And so this is, my apologies. This is going to make it more linear as long as you hit non-synchronous. And it will appear in this order. If you want any more detail on that, best to maybe contact our support team with the specific workflow that you want reviewed, and then we can kind of look into it and see if there'll be any effect. But I don't think this will have any effect other than it might take a little longer to run some of the workflows because it's running them more linear than it did before.
Perfect. All right. The next question is, what email does the recording come from?
I'm not sure. We'll have to we'll get someone to get back to you on who sends it out. I believe our marketing team sends it out, but it could be from Kleena on our client success team that also sends it out, or maybe both.
Correct. All right. Yeah, we'll have to get back to you on that. Next question is, can you please explain a little bit more about SSO?
Sure. SSO, or single sign-on. First, let me come on in here. And if I go to the integrations, we've got our single sign-on here where we can set up our single sign-on. And there's a whole bunch of things around the single sign-on where basically you have your own identity provider, someone logs in through your system, and then they get access right into your SmartSimple system from based there. There's several things around here. First of all, whether it's a an identity provider initiated or whether it's service provider initiated with the SSO. So that's whether or not we send a message to the identity provider and then they come back with a message, or whether it's just directly they log into your own system where you authenticate in your own system, and then it brings you right into your SmartSimple environment from there. So really with this one is we've added more of the signing certificates and some more functionality around that. If you don't know about this as well, if you have a multi-tenant environment, we have this thing called multiple environment support, where you can actually set up things, and then based on which environment you're on, whether it's your live, your staging, your dev, you can have different SSO links for each of those. So hopefully that answered that question. But essentially, a single sign-on, what it does is you're authenticating on another system, and then you're coming right in. So much like sometimes I go to a site and it's like I can sign on with Facebook or some other credentials and then get in. That's the whole idea here, and we've just made it more robust.
Perfect. Thank you. The next question is, can you please review what we need to change before the November update?
Yeah, sure. So really what we're talking about here is, and that's why we're giving you a 4 months notice on this, is that, let me just go back up, is the password variables. So older systems may have had all these password variables that would send out password in the email, right? Which is not a very secure practice. So instead, what we do is we use this link called the activation link. And what the activation link will do is it sends, as it says, a link to the user, and the user clicks that link and then they enter the password that they want. As opposed to you sending it out and maybe that password gets caught with a man-in-the-middle attack or something like that. So it sends out a link, then they put in their password, and then they're good to go, as opposed to some of these older ones. The places where you would go to update it. So I'm going to go to Global Settings, Security, Password and Activation Policies. As I showed here, so this is where I go, and if I hit this sample template, it populates it with a suggested text. So that's for a new user signs up, they will get the activation link, which will basically, they click that and then they can enter the password that they want. Same thing here, if they're doing a password reset, again, it's going to give them that. And you have to manually update this. Again, you can just hit the sample template and then change as you see fit, but it needs to be manually updated because you may have, we don't know what you have in there, and we don't want to just replace it so that way you can use whatever you want. The other place I'd mention is sign up. So with the sign up pages, a really easy way to find that is if I go to communications, system email templates, this is where I can go and find all the emails that get sent out from my system. So it's kind of one place to go. If I come in here and I search for sign up, I can see if I have custom sign up page emails. So when someone registers, maybe it sends them an email, and I can jump right from there into that email, and I can make sure I modify that as well the same way if I'm sending out a password. The same thing, I think, with workflows. You can probably search by the task in here to find those. I haven't done this for a while. Let me just see if that works. So here's my workflow emails. Yeah, so here's my workflow email tasks. And theoretically, I can go through those and just make sure if any of those are sending out a password, I can change those over to make sure they send out the activation link instead.
Perfect. Thank you. So the next one is for restrict.
Actually, sorry, one more thing. Just to let you know that with this updated file loader, because that's also going to be turned on in November. If you want to turn it on before then, maybe you want to put on your backup, or if you have another test server that you want to use, you can see it anytime. So I'm just going to reiterate that. If you go to branding, enable file uploader right here, you can turn it on prior if you want, but otherwise we will flip it over in November. So if you want to try it out and test it and provide us with any feedback, that's how you would do that. But again, that's I guess it's almost 5 months away before we do those two things. Sorry, Stephen, go ahead now.
No worries. So next question, for restricted or restrict access to backup server by role, does it work only for a SaaS model?
All right. So first of all, let me back up here a bit. So based on most instances, most environments, if you go here and you put BK for all of our shared tenant servers, you'll have a backup environment, which will have pretty much yesterday's data, and I can go there and make changes, and it gets refreshed every night. Or at least every 24 hours. So I can go there, I can try things out. Maybe I can try some configuration, see how it's going to look. And it doesn't matter because the next day it's going to get wiped. And then later I can apply it into my live instance. So the question is restricting backup access. So yeah, when we restrict the backup access, if I go to the global settings, sorry. It was under security, I believe, system feature permissions, features, I think that's where I went. There we go. Yeah, so here it is. So this will restrict it to that backup environment. So if you're a multi-tenant server and you have a backup environment, whatever roles you say here will be able to access that, but your applicant, for example, can't go in and look at stuff in the backup. Your program manager, whatever it is, won't be able to go in there and use those. Now, you could still go in there and, in theory, emulate those users if you wanted to do some testing, but we generally recommend that you're restricting and don't allow people to go to that backup environment. That's more for, seeing and doing some testing and things like that.
Perfect. All right, thank you. Next one is, are the AI integrations free, or do we need to opt in / subscribe via our account manager?
Yes. So the AI subscription, first of all, there is a fee to use it. And secondly, you need to bring your license from the AI provider that you choose to use. So for example, if you're using OpenAI, you'd have to get a license from them. And then you need to talk to your account manager as well, because there's an additional fee on top.
Perfect. Thank you. Next one. Can we review delegation specifically internally to give staff temporary system admin access?
Sure. So a couple of things about this one. So the way you get access to it again is first of all, you have to give role permission. So I can say who can delegate and who they can delegate to. And once those roles are set, then because I have permission, I can come in here to my personal settings. I go to the other tab. And if I enable this delegation, then I can pick one or more people that I want to be able to delegate to. So they'll be able to emulate me. And I can pick from what date until what date. So, this is the beginning. So like 1 a.m. June 20th to the end of day, July 20th. That person can emulate me and see what I can see and do the tasks that I will do. Now, they don't receive any emails that would have been sent to me, for example. Those don't get redirected. They just have access to see what I can see and do what I can do. So they can go to my portal, and if I've got a task list there, they'll see that task list, and they'll have access to all the records that I would have access while they're emulating me. And then at any time, they can stop emulating me or start emulating me again. So it's really a temporary user emulation.
Okay. Thank you.
And sorry, there's a follow-up to that there. So it says, yeah. So actually, let me just go a little more deep into this. So I don't know if I showed it, but if I did put an optional message in when I go to my profile, people will see that optional message that I put in. If I don't put a message in, they won't see that. The other part to this question, does it show up in the history? Yes. So when you're emulating somebody, it already shows up in the history and in the logs, for example, if you want to look at, say, a specific field and you want to see what changes were made to that field, in the log, in the change history of that, it shows you, basically it was made by this user, but that user was emulated by, and it will say who that emulator was. And then it says, what the change was. This text was changed from this to this by this user who was emulated at that time by this user. So you do have a record of who did those things.
All right, thank you. The next one would be, can you go over required updates again? Something about changing variables?
Yeah, so wait a second, I'm just gonna pull this back over. Yeah, so and again, you'll have the recording so you can go over it again. But essentially what we wanna do is, there are some variables, that password, maybe some of these other ones might be used as well, which are all variations of that. And those need to be replaced. So wherever you have an email that has this app password or one of these, you'll need to replace it with the activation link, essentially. That would be in the global settings under the activation emails. It'll probably be in the setup pages and the workflows. And if you really, best thing to probably do would be, if you're not sure, just cover a support team a call. They'll help you, walk you right through it, and do it for you. So feel free to reach out to them, but just ideally do that before the next 4 months, so it's not a surprise, and that way you can help transition people and let people know that this is coming.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mark. So next question is, for the user delegation, does it appear as if you are doing things at the user you're emulating? Does it show up in the history as the emulated person or person emulating?
Both. So you'll see that it'll show as you modified it, but then it'll be emulated by.
Perfect. Next question. Does this otherwise change the system ability to set passwords?
Well, yeah. So instead of setting a password for someone, you'll send them the link, and then they'll have to set their own password, as opposed to you setting your passwords for them and then sending those out to them. I don't know if that will be included in the November, but eventually I believe that will go. I'll have to double check on whether or not that's coming in November yet. You may still be able to set a password. I'll have to check on that. But certainly, if you send a password, it won't generate the password for you anymore. It'll send the activation link. And if you do use this or you leave this, then the person will just get @password@ in the email to them, and they won't get the password. So that's why we have to change to this. So I guess to reiterate, because I was a bit confusing there, I'm not sure about set password. I believe you can still set passwords for people, but you can't send them the password in the email anymore. Instead, you have to send them this activation link. So I'll have to double check about the set password. I believe you can still set passwords.
All right. Yep. A few more questions. Does the @URL have to go before the @activation link @?
Yeah, because that way it tells you which instance you're going from. So what they're referring to there is this @URL @. So the @activation link @ is going to be a relative path, but because you're sending this out as an email, it would be just like wiki upgrades, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of like this part of the link, but you need the @URL @ to give them this part of the link. Otherwise, when they click it, it's not going to know where to go. So this is the relative link, and then this makes it the absolute link, right? So you need both parts.
Perfect. All right. Next question. Is this for new folks on the platform or current users or both? Think new is what I heard, correct?
I'm not sure about the context of the question.
Yeah.
Maybe you can let us know the context of the question.
What specific? I think it was in between while we were showing something. They might have asked that question.
So
they can focus on what is new.
Okay, just maybe ask the question again in the chat. We'll get to it after.
Correct. Next is, can you show the API logs and how to disallow a function to use an API?
Sure. I can show some of it. Let me just a second here. And hi, Kurt. All right, so the API logs. Now, I don't actually have it set up very well in my system. This is just my personal test system. So, but let me show you what I do have. Smart Connect API. So integration Smart Connect API. So in here, this would be the logs. It would show all the logs if I had them in here. And then if I wanted to, I can go to the specific function and I can see that log, what's happening with that specific function. Again, my apologies, I don't have any data set up in this one. And likewise, if I go back to the specific users, I don't have any actually set up right now in the system, but I can go into the log for that user. So I can see what calls that user is making. I don't have to call up the dev team or anyone else. I can see all those logs from here, which is pretty good. What was the second part of that question there? Sorry, did you remove it already? The second.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Can you show the API logs and how to disallow a function to use an API?
Yeah, so basically on the function itself, we've added this allow access. So basically I can say, if the API user has a certain role, for example, then only they can call that function. I believe that was kind of what you're after there. So we've added this access. So first of all, if the API is going to expose anything, you have to set it up to what it's going to what you're going to allow it to do, but you also can provide role access to certain functions as well. So that's new.
All right. Next question. Can you review the new delegate option? How would a grantee add a delegate? Is it similar to the collaborator option? How is it different than collaborator?
All right. So first of all, what we're talking about there, I believe, is you're talking about invitations. So in invitations, and I believe that's what you're talking about here. So sometimes maybe I'm in here and I want someone else to contribute to my document, so I can go to invitations and I can invite someone to collaborate on this, or I can go to the contacts and I can add a contact and allow them to work with this. Now, if I've already got someone working there, what I can do, and if you give access, your internal people can also delegate to other internal people, which is the first case I talked about. But as the second case is, let's say an applicant and co-applicant are working on this, or maybe you've got a CEO who's the main contact on this, but maybe they can't or aren't able to come in and fill in their parts, or the financial officer isn't able to come in and fill in their parts, even though they're using the system. That person, you get them to log in, they can go to their user menu, personal settings, and they could, in theory, delegate to maybe the co-applicant. And then the co-applicant could come in and they would get that drop down up here, this the logo up here, and then they can click that and they could emulate the financial person or the CEO and fill in their information for them. So,
all right.
So that's the way you would delegate to another user. And just for clarity, with normal emulation, it's just based on role. So basically, I'd say, people of role A can emulate people in role B. With temporary user emulation, I'm specifically saying only this one user, regardless of well, not regardless, because you have to set the roles too. But as long as I have permission to emulate to that role of user, then I'm going to say one user within that role, this one specific user can emulate me only. So it's very targeted. There are some restrictions. First of all, if you're an internal user, you can only emulate to other internal users, and external can only emulate to other external users. And then there's one flexibility that the regular emulation doesn't have, which is that a system admin can actually emulate another system admin. Because normally with emulation, we don't allow that. But in this one, because it's targeted, you can actually have one system admin emulate another system admin.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. The next question, would I be able to report on the dates and times of document upload?
Yes, there is a way to report on the dates and times of document upload. We have I don't know if it's in here yet, but we have a feature coming where you can see, well, actually I was thinking downloads, sorry, my bad. We do have a feature coming where you can see who's downloaded which files and how many files. Anyway, that's coming in a future release. You want to see dates and times of documents uploaded. I'm assuming you can do that as well, but the best thing would probably be to reach out to either support or the platform team, and they can probably walk you through the easiest way to create a report to see when things are uploaded based on exactly what you're looking for.
Perfect. Next question. If we don't use the delegation feature, would we still be able to emulate someone or not?
Yeah, you can still set up emulation as normal. This is the temporary user emulation is really kind of a targeted emulation. It's totally, even though it is an emulation as well, it's very different in that it doesn't, what's the way I'm saying? Normal emulation, you can still use it, and the target emulation, you can use them, they're interchangeable. You can use both at the same time.
Perfect. Thank you. The next question, I guess something similar. How is delegation different from regular emulating?
Yeah. So again, so here, if I go to a user in the system and I've been set up to emulate, if I have role access, I would go to, I believe it's tools or actions. I would say, okay, emulate this user. And I can just do that. The user doesn't have to give me permission. Based on my role, I have access to emulate any of those users in that role. Whereas this one is very specific. It's very targeted to one user. So I can basically delegate to Stephen, and then Stephen could come in and only emulate me. as opposed to everyone else in my role. So that's the difference. It's more controlled. I can only emulate 1 or 2 people that I've specified or that have given me permission to emulate me specifically, as opposed to the regular emulation where I can emulate anyone in that role.
Perfect. Thank you. So next question is, for AI, if we need subscription, is there an environment where we can test, explore it?
Yeah, I mean, certainly you could, if you had the subscription, and also I believe they offer, I believe there's a free trial or something going on right now. You'd have to reach out to the platform solutions team. But yeah, you could try it out, see if you like it, I guess, and then go from there. Best thing to do would be reach out to our platform team. Greg's really kind of the expert in this area for that. But yeah, you could try it out. You could try it on your backup environment, set it up, try it out there, and then or do it in a small place and restrict it so that it's only seen by some internal people. Much like the new work with the AI interactive mode, or whether you're doing it through workflows, you can always restrict who gets access to this and what information you're actually going to pass through to your AI provider.
Perfect. Thank you. So another one would be, could you show us some examples on the benefits of connecting our AI subscriptions to SmartSimple that we wouldn't get using when you're using an AI platform on its own?
Again, I think the best person to speak specifically to that feature would be our product team. So what I would say is actually, if you can reach out to platform solutions at smartsimple.com, they can kind of maybe walk you through that a little more in depth than I would be able to do. They'll do a little bit more justice, especially with the use cases. Some of the use cases that I'm aware of, for example, are just helping people either fill in their applications or making summaries or translating content, or maybe you have a set of reviews and you want to automatically give you a summary. Here's the result of 15 reviews, or maybe here's here's a list of reviewers that match the expertise of this application, or that kind of stuff. Summarize this whole application in a few words, or even pre-screening. So there's a lot of use cases there, but again, the platform solutions at smartsimple.com is probably the best place to send them an email, and they can walk you through that a little better.
Perfect. Thank you. Just to follow up from one of the previous questions, the context in regards to the
yeah. So I think I was wrong originally. I think you can still set passwords. So I'll double check that, and we can reach out to you. Steven's going to make a note right now, but yeah, it's just the password variable isn't going to generate the password for them. It's going to send them the activation link instead.
Okay, perfect. Another question is, the new password with activation link. This update is when someone new signs up, not the existing users, right?
Yeah, it should have no effect on your existing users. If they've already got a password, that password's still going to work. It's still fine. It's more if somebody new signs up, instead of getting a password emailed to them, they'll get a link where they enter the password that they want to use, as opposed to a system-generated password. And then again, if they request a new password, again, they have to go in. And if you've never seen our password screen, so basically they would get a screen that's similar to this, where they would enter in the password that they want and confirm that password, and it would tell them the criteria that's right here, as opposed to sending them a pre-generated password. And if you've never seen as well, I'm just going to dig into this a little deeper here. The password activation policies, this is where we set up all those policies, your maximum length, whether you're going to use the default complexity or set up your own complexity, some of the rules around that. And just a reminder for people that when it comes to security of passwords, length is usually better than complexity, but just this is where you would set all that stuff up, and you can test it from here too. And again, this would apply to people who are creating new passwords, not the people who already have passwords in your system. So again, this won't affect people that are already in your system with their passwords. It's any new users being generated, any password resets, but you do have to change over those variables. Otherwise, when they get that email, it'll just say password at, and it won't create that.
Perfect. Thank you. So the next one is, could it be established as a cascade of emulations? If you mark delegate to Stephen and Stephen delegates to a third person, the third person could view and do the same, then mark, or the delegation has only once or has only one.
So yeah, the idea is, can I delegate someone and then they delegate to someone, and can I jump through? And the answer is no. If I've delegated to somebody, they can't go and emulate a user that they've delegated to. So unfortunately, it's only one level. You can't delegate and delegate and delegate.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, and I think that's a
couple others just came in, right?
Sorry. Thanks for addressing the new versus existing users. There was another, I think it's more of a statement. It says, yikes, some folks have system spam filters that filter out from the web page. So we set passwords as a temporary stopgap and advise outside the system.
Yeah. Again, that should be okay. If you're setting the password for them and providing them, I think you can still set a password. I'll have to double check on that. But again, if you, best thing to do would be just give support a call, and they can walk you through your specific scenario and help you out and tell you what your options are on that.
Correct. Yeah, I'm taking notes from all the questions as well. And then, yeah, thanks for addressing the new user versus existing users. Then I think that's about it in regards to questions. Yeah. So that's fine with questions. All right. So yeah, so I guess thank you everyone for your questions as well as your comments. And so in regards to that, definitely do remember that we do have the video will be recorded, and everyone will be sent a copy of it as well too, and then it'll also be uploaded to the wiki, our wiki page, as well as we'll send the link to everyone in through our social media as well too. Aside from that, thank you everyone for attending. We hope everyone has a great day and enjoy the rest of the day wherever you are.